All right, it's time to get started. Welcome. If you want to know who that was, Lenny did a retreat and the DJ was playing this song he asked him to put on. It's Donna DeLory, D-E, and then another word is L-E-O-R-Y, Donna DeLory, and it's Sky is Open. I love that. It's got some great music. So I want to thank you guys for getting on, and I know a lot of people are still popping on, but I'm going to get started and hold ourselves to the time. I'm going to jump right into it. This is a subject that I'm real intense about, and rather than introducing myself and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to go into this and kind of set it up. What I'm going to share tonight may be new for some of you. It may be a refresher course for some of you, and then hopefully I'm going to share things that will cause you to see things a little bit differently, give you something to think about in a different way. It's so important. And what I'm going to share with you is my feelings on it. It's one of the greatest things, which also it's one of the greatest things that I could be working on and spending my time and my effort towards. And it's also one of the things that has given me the greatest sense of satisfaction and joy and fulfillment are the things that I'm going to talk about tonight. Now, we can't get it all out, but I'm going to present it, I feel, on a pretty intense and deep level, which will just give you an opportunity for a lot of you to just, if you haven't heard it before, or maybe you've heard a little bit of it and you want to know more about the law of attraction and these universal laws, we'll go pretty deep, pretty intense. Again, if it's something that's new to you, what I'm hoping is that it'll give you another way of looking at things and considering them. Where I spend most of my time is in this area, personally. For me personally, my own personal development, it's where I spend my greatest amount of effort, and I take it very seriously personally. No one would ever know just how seriously I take it and how intense I am with it for myself. But I just want you to know it is the most intense part of my life and what's going on inside my head and how I'm directing that and how there's a real power behind directing that. And it's completely under my own control, just as it is yours. Everybody has their own control over this and to what level or degree they want to learn it and implement it and express that power in their lives. It's the greatest power. It's everything. It's the culmination of all the great quotes that you've heard where they say, as a man thinketh, so is he. Whatever the mind of man can conceive, can achieve. It all centers around this, what we're going to talk about tonight. There's a lot of aspects to learn about it. And something that's so great and develops such a great skill can't be learned in one webinar. But the intention of this webinar is to help you be introduced to it, first of all, if you haven't been before. If you have been, maybe on a deeper level. And then what I would direct people to do, I'm just as intense with it on the podcast. And that allows me the time to draw it out to help people to really, really get it, to get it on a cellular level from a lot of different dimensions and perspectives that you need to get. A lot of pieces of the puzzle go into this. Hopefully we get some major pieces of the puzzle for you tonight. But I just want to say this is just, if it's the first time you're being introduced to it, or maybe the way in which I teach it, this is just one piece of the puzzle. So I'd recommend going to mechanictomillionaire.com and downloading the shows there. You can listen to them. It's all free, you guys. I'm doing this because it's my way of making a contribution in the world. And there's a podcast app for it. It's Mechanic to Millionaire. And I recommend starting at show number 1. And in show number one, talking into a microphone in a recording studio was a little bit, I had to get used to that. And I was thinking more about the microphone and things like that. So it starts out a little rough, I think, but I just get better and feel more and more comfortable. And then more of me is able to come out as the shows progress. But there's still great information regardless of how I sound. So it's all critical and it's all essential. So I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this with you yesterday morning as I was studying. You know, I just have a great vision for the world and where we're heading. I believe in the human spirit, absolutely. And I believe that God is in control and he's taken this world right where he wants it to go. If we watch the news all the time, we might think something else. We might think the world's going to hell in a handbasket, but that could not be further from the truth. If you watch CNN, which I like to say stands for constantly negative news, and we've heard that, some of you have heard that before, I just choose not to participate in that. And what I do choose to participate in is real, it's reality, and I see the world going to this incredible, incredible place. So I'm going to change the slide here. I just want to check in one last time. If you can type in, let me know that you're hearing me okay, and that the slide just changed. You can see that okay. It says universal laws now. Anybody want to type in and let me know that? Okay, thanks, Lisa. All right, so here I go. I'm going to jump into this. So first, I just want to start out. It's going to be a lot of pictures as we get past these first two slides, but I want to establish something right here. And then also, I'm really visual. But listen to the things that I'm saying along with the visual side. And I believe Austin is recording this, so we can see if that recording comes out, and we'll get it up on YouTube. And I want to do that. This is the thing that I'm dedicated to for the rest of my life, is teaching these laws, because they're so empowering and they're going to help us to move the world forward in a positive direction, in a way that it never has before. So none of this is stuff that I've invented or come up with. I've learned from mentors and then pondered on them, and I feel like I've had some of those truths that they presented, being able to understand them on a deeper level, and then my life experiences have helped me to articulate them in the way that I do. So I do want to say I believe in God, and I believe that God is in charge, and that this in no way takes God out of it. If you need to replace that with another word, I don't get offended by that, but that's who I look to, and it hasn't separated me from him. It hasn't edged God out, which is ego. It's actually drawn me closer to him. And for those of you that are scripture readers, and again, I don't mean to offend anybody, and this is not, you know, not trying to push any of my beliefs on you as far as religion goes, or beliefs that are very personal for people. But I believe that it has opened up the scriptures to me in a way that I never knew. And now that I read them, I'm just like, oh my goodness, it was always there. So we're going to fill in some pieces of the puzzle. So here we go. And if you have any questions or some comments or anything, then type those into the questions box, and I'll go through as many as we can at the end of the webinar. All right, so here we go. All right, so universal laws. Bob Proctor says that even the universal laws are the ones that that God uses as his modus operandi, which means his way of getting things done, universal laws. So when we think of universal laws, we could think of like the law of gravity. That's one law that all of us pretty much obey. People like Kenyon Salo might push it to the limit, but pretty much everybody obeys the law of gravity. And the law of gravity, there's no mercy in them. They will cause the same effects to happen to anybody, whether it's an infant that is playing on a very high ledge. If that baby chooses to go off of that ledge, or a young child or whatever, they're going to fall to their demise, knowing or unknowing about the law. And that's how universal laws are. And once we come to understand that, and then with some of these other laws that I'm going to teach, as soon as we come to humble ourselves and say, yeah, I'm going to submit to the laws, then that's when everything starts to change in your life, and you start to use these laws, because there's no blessing that we receive in our life that doesn't come from obeying a law that it's predicated upon. So, and there's laws for everything. There's laws for how much money you make. There's laws for the type of home you live in. There's laws for the type of car, the type of associates that you may be dealing with on a daily basis, the way your business is running, your happiness during the day. Everything is based on law. There isn't any place that there isn't any law. and it's what makes order in the universe. And a lot of people aren't aware of them, especially some that we're going to be talking about tonight. And so it looks like there's chaos, but it's an organized chaos, you guys, I promise you. And as soon as you start to knowingly understand these laws and implement them, everything starts to change. And I'm speaking from personal experience for myself. Some of you know my story, but I'm not going to take the time to go into my story and where I was and where I am today. Learning the importance and perspective of expectation. Sometimes we want something, but we expect something else. That's not good enough. You're not living laws when you do that. If you want something, but you expect something else to happen, and that could be just a slight little twist in the way that you're thinking about things, and then all of a sudden everything changes. But that one slight little twist of perspective can be very sneaky, and it gets so many people to where they don't have the successes because they're ignorant to it. When I change the way I see things, the things I see change. Wayne Dyer has an audio that says, I'll believe it or I'll see it when I believe it. That's how it works. So that expectation has to be one of belief before you'll see it, always, by law. Seeing the value in making this your single greatest priority in life, everything is a result of how I see things, my perspective. And my perspective can change and evolve to something better and more positive. There's degrees of understanding things and then applying that understanding. If you just know something but you don't live up to it, like you're not obedient to it, that's just being smart, but it's not being intelligent. Intelligent is when you are obedient to the things that you know are true, like they're like law. And when you're not obedient to them, you might be book smart, but you're not very life smart. You're not getting the results you want in life. So not just mentally, but in my physical experiences. So that's when we start to implement them. So we may know that smoking isn't good for us, and we know that with a fact, but we don't obey that. We still continue to smoke. So the intelligent person, and I'm not picking on anybody here, I know that there's addictions and things like that, but the intelligent person, knowing the results of breaking the law of health through smoking, would be smart, they wouldn't understand it, but an intelligent person wouldn't partake in that. Now again, I'm not saying that in judgment. I could say that with soda pop, right? For a lot of you that are health conscious and health minded, you know that soda pop's probably one of the greatest assaults on health, and yet so many people drink it. That's not an intelligent decision because of the results. So, but more than that, the law of health, you're breaking that law. Now, I want to read this. It's a paragraph by John A. Widtsoe. This guy has a building named after him at a university. He must know something. He says the philosophy, and he's going to interchange philosophy and religion here. Philosophy is your outlook on your life. It's your take. It's how you think life works. And it becomes this kind of guidance system for you, a system of values, a system of ethics. So he says the philosophy or system of thought adopted to explain man's place in nature determines largely the joy and manner of a man's life. So how I think about how life works and nature works and my part in that explains my place in it, that's going to determine the amount of joy that you have in your life. If the philosophy be poor and loose, life will be confused. If rich and firm, life will be clear-cut. And if law be made supreme, life will be orderly. So I just have to tell you where I was before. I was praying to die. That's where I was at in my life. It was confused. It was not successful. And my life was, I just felt like I didn't want to live anymore. And that's because, and then as soon as I started learning the laws that I hadn't been introduced to before, immediately, the moment I accepted and embraced them and started enacting them, it took me from that life to where everything changed. Everything turned around. So there's always hope. Those who have no religion or philosophy at all become the playthings of unknown forces. So what he means by unknown forces is the law of gravity. Now you know about the law of gravity, and you're really not a plaything of that force, but there are other laws that you don't know about that are just as powerful in your life, and in fact even more powerful than the law of gravity. So every act of a man's life is influenced by the philosophy of his life, your outlook on life, your way that you think life works. And I'm going to tell you, just leave that at the door tonight. If you think you've got it figured out and you're going to look at this with blinders on, I don't know what to say. This is not up for debate with me. What I'm going to share with you tonight is, to me, empirical truths. Tried, true, and tested again and again. So it's the most important product of an individual life and is the most compelling power in life. So I know that there are people from all over the world and people that are on Facebook that are friends with me. I know a lot of them are in the same company that I'm in, a lot of you. And the success that I have, where I was throwing newspapers every morning at 4:30, then fixing cars all day long, and then fixing cars at home at night, and just not being healthy, and all of these things, lack of success in my life, all of that changed because of what I'm going to introduce you to tonight. And we're going to get into some of the laws pretty deep, that if you'll just embrace them and start practically applying them in a practical way, which I'm going to show you how, they can start to change before you know all the pieces of the puzzle. Here I am, almost 10 years and studying this every single day. And it just gives me more knowledge, but you can start to change your life with what we're going to share today if you'll implement it. Now, everything vibrates. Everything's made out of electrons, and then you go, these electrons build themselves into molecules and then into like amino acid chains, and everything is made out of electrons. Everything, and that electron is like electricity. That's the best way to describe it. And it's buzzing. If you ever been near a telephone wire where it's just bzzz, that's the energy from the electricity in these electrons. So everything vibrates. We know that colors, the different colors are different vibrations. We think we're just seeing the color with our eyes, but that's not what we're seeing with our eyes. We're picking up the vibrations, just like your ears pick up the vibration of sound. And then your brain interprets that vibration with an image in your brain. So everything is a vibration. And then our brain interprets it to look at what it looks like. And even the denseness of something, whether it's solid or liquid, it's all set up by vibration. So this vibration, let's take this. So let's say there's a person, this little circle represents an individual, and they have something called a paradigm. A paradigm is their outlook on life, their belief on life and the way it works for them, and the way that they may perceive that it works for everybody else. And you know, that may be differently than how they think it works for themselves. Either way, a paradigm is things that you've learned as you've grown up, and then your mind stores them away as memories. And a paradigm you could pick up from TV shows that you watch, music that you listen to, teachers that were influential on you, coaches, your parents, your siblings, friends, all kinds of things that you see walking down the street, and you pick up just a little chunk of it, and then you make a decision on that, and then you store that decision away. We know that we can see things with our physical eyes and hear things with our ears that are misconceptions. They're not real. It's not true. Like if you stand on a railroad track and look off in the distance, it looks like they converge together and become one track. Well, that's not true, but that's what it looks like. It looks like a ship will fall off at the end of the ocean as it goes over the horizon. So they used to think that the world was flat. They really did believe that, right? So kind of think about that. They really did believe that. There's things in your life that you really believe, but they're just as ludicrous as thinking the world is flat. They're just as wrong. And they're leading and guiding you in your life. And it sets up this vibration within your entire body, which then acts like a magnet. And that's the best way to describe how the law of vibration works. It attracts back to you people who believe the same things. And some of these things could be your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind may be wanting something different, but what you're expecting is really your vibration, your paradigm, and how you truly believe things really work. So here's this person. There's an infinite amount of vibrations. And so we're planting this person with this circle right there. And they're right in the middle of that line, but they're also a part of the line just above it and a part of the line just below it. So how does this person's paradigm work when it comes to building their business? And a lot of you, again, are in the same company that I am. And so I'm going to use like examples of negative paradigms that keep people stuck in their business. So what are some of the things they're thinking? The products cost too much. Every time I talk to somebody, they say the products cost too much. Competition. I don't have enough time. I'm constantly distracted. There are so many distractions in my life that I just have to take care of, and I can't get to do the things that I want to. Victim. Nobody wants to give their social security number. I always have that problem. I lack cycles. My cycles are anywhere from 1 to 0, 0 to 1. I don't know. I mean, everybody else can cycle, but I can't. Fear. I'm not good enough. I remember that teacher in 3rd grade said, who do I think I am? I'm not going to amount to anything. And so that was planted in there as a memory. So are those unrealistic thoughts and paradigms? No way. Probably more people feel that kind of paradigm than anything more positive than that. That's probably the common right there. That's probably a common paradigm right there. And again, that could become a habitual way of thinking. So what you're going to do is you're going to be sending out from you, it's going to emanate. You can't see it, just like you can't see the sound waves that are coming and vibrating your ear and causing you to hear things. But this is vibrating out from you, all of these things. Now, this is just one particular area. It doesn't mean that this person is a complete failure in life. Maybe they're really good at work, or maybe they're really good at music, or maybe they're really good at listening to other people. This is just one sliver of an area of their life, and so this would be considered, you know, this person's outlook on their business. Now, what we want to do is change that, and it can be changed. Just like you got it, you can also change it. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So assumptions, a thing that is accepted as true or as certain to happen without proof. That's an assumption. A thing that you accept as true. And we can do that. We can assume things. Tiger Woods, when he was just a kid, his dad made him repeat over and over, I'm a world champion below par professional golfer. You know, I'm the best. I'm a world champion below par professional golfer. I'm the best. Over and over. And he said that. He wasn't a professional when he was saying that, though. Will Smith on YouTube, there's a thing where he's being interviewed, and they splice it up with a bunch of interviews. He says, you have to be delusional to get your goals, the things that you want, because you don't have them yet. And so you have to get to a place where you become delusional and you understand that process. So what we need to do is we need to move our paradigm up. We need to change our thoughts. Everything on the inside shows up on the outside. As on the inside, so on the outside. So that's where we need to do the work. Most people think it's on the outside. You know, how many phone calls you make, how many meetings you hold, how many people you talk to that week. That's what most people think, and that's what most people are taught. But that's not where the work needs to take place. There does need to take work. I mean, you do need to spend time and effort in doing things physically, but the vast majority of the work is going to be changing this paradigm. So what we want to do is change our thoughts. And you need to do it with enough intensity and enough length of time, and you'll start seeing the changes. So here's where we want to be. You look at people from here in the business, and you look up at them, and they're like, wow, they're cycling over 100 times a week. How would that be? Well, that person that's cycling 100 times a week cannot have that thought. There's no way they could be thinking, how would that be if I'm cycling 100 times a week? Because they already are. The thing which you are is the thing which you own. So that person doesn't have the same type of thought process as this person here. They couldn't by law. They already know what it's like to cycle. This person is thinking about 200 cycles a week. And what would it be like to get there? So abundance, focused. I have plenty of time. I focus on, and I know where my focus goes, that thing grows. They have this understanding. They have this ability to understand things to a certain capacity, which then causes them to act a certain way. They get recognized. They're giving huge contribution. They're grateful for the things they have in life. Gratitude is a natural orientation or process for them. I am successful. I am able to make a difference. People want to join my business, and they do. People are joining it all the time. So this is this person's paradigm. And you could make it your paradigm even though you're not there yet. We're going to talk more about that and show you some graphs that'll help you to understand how to do that to a greater degree. So this is what affirmations are for. But most people aren't told enough about why they need to do the affirmations and to what extent and to what level and what kind of feelings they need to generate and how consistently that needs to happen. They're just told, think positive, you know, don't be negative, and read your affirmations. Read them every day before you go to bed and you know, when you wake up in the morning. That's not good enough to do it just in the morning and at night. And it's so much more than that. What we need to do is we need to get to where we're literally vibrating at this frequency. So here you are down here at this lower experience in life. Okay, you're not having all the success that you would like to. You can change your frequency while you're here. And this is the trick, and this is where most people give up because they don't understand the work that it takes and to what extent they need to do that for and how long and consistently. And so they'll do it only for a short time, or they'll jump in and out of it. Well, they'll feel this vibration within them, because what you got to do is be delusional. You got to act like you're already here. You got to feel like you're already here. Feeling's the secret. When you feel like you're already here, when you're reading your affirmations, you're vibrating at that level. So you're no longer right here. And you'll know it, and you're only thinking these thoughts. You're not thinking any of these thoughts. You couldn't be thinking them at the same time. It would be impossible. So when you're feeling it, you know that you created the vibration, and by law, these types of experiences will start to be attracted to you. The people, the situations, the circumstances, but you have to do it more than just in the morning and just at night. Here's the rub. You got to be doing it all day long, and that is the work. That's the work. You don't get something for nothing, but you've got to get to where you're doing it all day long. No interruptions, no negating it by jumping back down here. And when you do that, people will see the miracles in your life. They're going to say how lucky you are. They're going to say how you changed. So the key is not just to read your affirmations and fill them for the moment. The key is to get the feeling behind the affirmation. So I come up with different words. I'm changing my affirmations all the time because I get inspired to come up with a different sentence or a different thought about what it would be like to be here. That helps me to resonate and get the feeling with more intensity. And then I commit it to memory. I carry a card around with me all the time. I have it written out on a piece of paper with pictures on it, my own little carry-along vision board. It's on my iPhone. It's on my iPad. And I work to get the feeling with me all the time. And then what happens is you start to have what Susan Sly calls divine connections, because they just show up. You don't have to force them. The doors open up for you. And people say, well, I guess God's not going to open up the door for me. No, God's already opened up every door that you would like to have opened. You just have to do your part. And he can't step in and do it for you. You've got to have the faith. So when you are resonating at this level, you have the faith. In the scriptures, it says, before you pray, believe that you receive, and then you'll have it. So before you even pray and ask God for it, you got to believe that you'll receive it. Well, how do you believe it? When you'll know you truly believe it when you have the feelings of what it's like to be right here, and you're not thinking these thoughts. That's pure faith. And mountains are moved by faith. All things are accomplished by faith. So I want to go into, this is so important that you understand this, because this is what you're going to work to internalize and internally get to that vibration within you every day. And it's a muscle. It's just a muscle that you developed. You already developed the muscle to where it does it in autopilot right here. So now to change a habit, we all know it's hard to change a habit, but it's possible. You can have this become your new habitual way of thinking. And then what you're going to see is 200 cycles. And so you're going to have to do it all over again. But this will become a habitual way of thinking, but you got to force it in the beginning. And you got to stay ever constant and ever vigilant. You have to guard your focus with your life. You could quote me on that, because that's my saying. I'm going to own up to that one. I guard my focus with my life. In other words, I guard my vibration with my life, because it's going to help me to succeed at all of the things I've ever wanted to succeed. You could change this, and it could be a golfer. It could be a baseball player. It could be the world's best mother. It could be anything that you want it to be, because there's infinite amount of vibrations. And the one that you focus on is the one that's going to grow. And I would commit you or challenge you to just do one at a time and be extreme focus on it. Thomas Edison said, I focus on one thing. You focus on about 100 different unrelated things all day long. You're sending out mixed signals all day long, and so you never amount to anything. I focus on one thing, so my work has got to amount to something. It's Thomas Edison. So here's what you're going to focus on: whatever you want to be, wherever you want to be in your business. So eventually it becomes habitual, and you leave this person behind. The person that used to do the paper route at 4:30 every morning doesn't exist anymore. I let the dead bury the dead, and I don't look back. I'd be unworthy of where I'm headed if I looked back. So it's about progression. And nature is progressive. It's the instinct of nature is to be progressive. It just continues to produce more and more and more and more. So controlling my frequency, my old paradigm versus the new paradigm that I'm going to create. The hypothalamus is like this pharmacy. It's the ultimate pharmacy, they say, scientists say, on What the Bleep Do We Know. They said it can produce any chemical chain that it wants, any chemical chain. It does it with, they're called peptides, and they're made with, they're an amino acid chain. And the hypothalamus can produce any chemical that will match your thought and your feelings. What it will do is it'll start to manufacture it within the hypothalamus, and then it goes immediately into the blood. This is important to understand because this is how we can control, maintain, or manipulate our frequency. Nature can't do that. I'm going to talk about an acorn, how an acorn always becomes an oak tree, because God set the certain frequency within that acorn. Did the same thing with a rose. Did the same thing with an orange tree or an apple tree. An apple seed will never become an orange tree because the frequency can't be changed by the seed. Now we go in and we can actually genetically alter a rose and get it to create some new color because we change the frequency in the seed. So when we create these peptides, these amino chains, they'll go into the blood, and then your cells will pick them up in receptors. And it does it instantaneously. You ever get scared? Well, that's your hypothalamus causing that feeling when you get scared, and it does it almost instantaneously. That's how fast they get into your blood system and then dock into certain receptors on cells. That causes the cell to vibrate at a certain frequency because that frequency creates feelings. It creates a lot of things. Frequencies creates the density in steel and in aluminum and in water. But you're talking about something much more fine and refined here. It's a spiritual essence that we're creating here. And it all is done physiologically. And these branch chain amino acids or peptides will create the frequency within you. And then it vibrates out just like a broadcasting station from a radio station. And they always land and on somebody who feels the same, somebody who thinks the same, somebody who has the same ethics, the same work ethics, everything. It always finds a place to land. And so you'll inspire people. You can have an incredible influence on helping people's lives to move forward when you've found a vehicle that can help change people's lives. So you get to come up with that. Now, when you're creating a new paradigm, you've got to use your imagination. I was doing a training on making vision boards for girls that were 14 to 16 years old last night. And I taught them about vision boards. And I said, so let's imagine, I said, I'm buying I don't have a motorcycle, but I want to. What would I imagine about that motorcycle that I could feel like I already have it? What are some things that I could think of with my imagination? They were stumped. They didn't know how to use their imagination to say, well, you'd be riding down the road and there would be wind going through your, through your hair, and somebody would be sitting, your wife would be sitting on the back with you, and she'd be holding tight, and you could be going down this long canyon road, or you could be out on PCH with the salt air, you could be shining the motorcycle, it could be sitting in your garage. I mean, that's all imagination, and they couldn't do it. And most people don't feel worthy enough to do it. I'll tell you, I had a conversation with my wife the other night, and she said she still has a hard time expecting great things for her. She's come a long ways, and she's been such an incredible inspiration to me and to so many people. She says she still has a hard time using her imagination to the fullest extent for her behalf. She doesn't feel, you know, I don't know about her, but people don't feel worthy. They don't feel good enough. They feel like they're asking for too much. Nobody's going to judge. You get to decide, and your hypothalamus is going to kick it out. So you've really got to use your imagination and build that muscle. If you're not, some people daydream all the time. Now they're going to figure out how to do it properly and maintain one particular paradigm. But you've got to use your imagination to come up with your new paradigm, and you'll start creating these vibrations. So your frequency can be decided by you, by the thoughts and images you hold now, or the new ones you create. All right. T. Harv Eker said, this seemed really hokey to me when I learned about this. But he said, I'd rather be really rich and really hokey than really poor and really cool, because his life wasn't working for him. And he wanted to have more success in his life. And it didn't matter how hard he worked, he wasn't having the success that he wanted. So he thought, man, this seems kind of crazy, like this is crazy talk. And that's how I felt, but I was so far down where nothing was working for me, and I had tried everything. I'm a hard worker, and I feel like I'm, you know, somewhat smart and intelligent, but I just couldn't get things to work. And so I said, I'm going to try it. And I gave it 100% effort. No question it, no blinders on, no sifting through what I think I want to believe and what I am and what I'm going to throw out. I took it all in, and I started going with it, and wouldn't you know it, everything started to change. So that was the testimony that I got, was changing the way I thought changed my results in life. And because I did it on such an extreme level, extreme results happened. So there was no question. So looking at your causes, or looking at your goal, causes very little to no change within you. So looking at your goal. So here you are. Imagine this is a huge cliff, 5,000 feet, and here's your goal over here. And you don't have it. How are you going to get over there? And if you took a step off, you're going to fall to your demise. Now, one of the things that I don't have in this presentation of this part was, in my life, on a scale of 1 to 10, the successes that I wanted to have in life, as far as my pursuits, you know, business-wise, accomplishments, making an impact in the world, were about a 3. And what would happen is I would go for it, and then I would hit level 4 and level 5 problems. Let me see if I have that pop up. Yeah. So here I was at a level 3. I'd hit level 4 and level 5 problems. What would those level 4 and 5 problems do to me? Well, they would defeat me. They would cause me to be frustrated and to not have the success I wanted. And I didn't know what those level 4 and 5 problems were. I just knew I could only get to a certain level of success, no matter what it was I did in my life. So what I started to do was work on my personal development. So if you imagine 2 of these charts, one here, 1 to 10, and one here, 1 to 10, have your personal development be the top one, and the bottom one be your goals, your pursuits in life. Well, where I'm at a 3, that's where my goals and my pursuits are. So I started working on my personal development in an area that I had never considered, because it was never introduced to me until I got involved with Isagenix through Lenny Evans and George Ruiz. So then I started working on that area of personal development, and I got to a 4 and a 5 and a 6. Mentally, that's where I was now. So what happened to the level 4 and 5 problems? It was like brushing my teeth. They weren't a problem anymore. And so my successes started to change. So what matched? My business. Down here on the other graph, it moved to a 6. That's why Lynn Hagedorn says, spend more time on yourself than you do on your business, because unless you do, you're going to remain stuck. Everybody brings with them to the table, whatever business they're doing, they already bring a certain amount of personal development. So wherever you're at on your personal development is where you're going to be on getting to your goals. And then you remain stuck. You'll work harder, you'll do more meetings, you'll make more phone calls, but your cycles and your income is going to stay about the same. You might have a good week, but then it pulls you right back to a 3. Now, if I can get my personal development to a 4, where I understand how to utilize the laws of the universe, then my business goes to a 4. If I get to a 7, then my business goes to a 7. Now, this could either be you progressing in your personal development, or they could be 3 different individuals, all having different levels of success, and they're all doing the same things. They're all using the same products. They're all using the same compensation plan. So where's the difference? What's going on in their head, and how they handle objections, how they respond or react, how they talk about things when challenges come up. All of these things are because of what they know, and how either they do it on purpose, or they been fortunate in their upbringing and in their business classes and things that they know, or they're ignorantly doing it, or they're on purposely doing it. So where you're at on your personal development is where you're going to be on getting to your goal. So here's the ultimate goal over here. They still fall short if they're at a 7, but they're doing much better than what the 3 is. So you need new beliefs, a new belief system, a new perspective on universal truths that will guide you in what's going on in your head. You're responding to things rather than reacting habitually. When you change the way you look at things, you respond differently. When you respond differently, it changes your feelings within you. When your feelings change, then things start to change. So important to understand that. So in most cases, people are still operating at their original frequency because they're looking at their goal and trying to figure out how to get there. And so what do? I got to make more phone calls. If I could just find the right person. I got to talk to more people. I got to sacrifice this. I got to sacrifice that. And they do it, but they're still staying in the same place. It's the most frustrating thing, especially when you're at a 3 and it's not good enough. So what do you do eventually? You quit and you go find something else to do. It wasn't the vehicle that you're in. It was you every single time. So you got to take personal responsibility for everything that's showing up in your life. Now, looking at your goal, looking at it doesn't change your vibration when you look at it. You got to become your goal. So you got to change your vibration to match the vibration of this goal over here. And when you're at a 3, 4, or 7, you're not vibrating at this. So mental faculties. Here's how this is the mental muscles that you have and the God-given innate capacity to choose your destiny and fulfill it. These are the mental muscles that you have and that you're going to exercise and use to get your frequency to match with your goal before being there. So there's 6 of them: reason, intuition, memory, will, perception, and imagination. If you just do the exercises that I'm going to have you do, you'll automatically work those muscles. And you'll feel it. It's fatiguing in the beginning, just like when you go and work out and you haven't worked out for a while, and you're going to be worn out at night just from using these mental muscles. If you use them properly, you're going to feel it. But then eventually you build that muscle up and it doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't fatigue you. So all of these mental faculties can utilize the law of attraction, vibration, frequency, abundance, focus, action, compensation, gratitude. There's probably an infinite amount of laws, and then infinite degrees in each one of these. These 6 mental faculties are only given to those that were created in the image of the Maker. Nothing in nature has that except for us. So we're the only ones that have this innate capacity to guide our frequencies. We're the only ones that can change them and direct them in the way that we want them to go and to the degree that we want them to go. That's because it's an innate capacity of being in the image of our Maker. So again, Lynn Hagedorn, many of you know her, I was at the last ICU before, the last ICU that they had in Phoenix, I believe it was, and Lynn Hagedorn was on the stage, and she said, spend more time on yourself than you do on your business. And when she said that, I wanted to stand up on my chair and just, shout to the rafters and say amen, because that's what I've been teaching people. Your personal development is synonymous with your ability to succeed. I've been saying that ever since I quit my job in 4.5 months with no network marketing experience, because I started to work on myself in the areas. I'm not just talking about being positive and saying positive things. It's much more than that. So changing your assumptions, it's repetition with affirmations, it's emotional triggers. You want to refine your affirmations to where they get you worked up. And as you tune into fine-tuning your affirmations, you'll be inspired. I used to think, wow, okay, I finally got the perfect affirmation. I'll go and laminate it, and then that way as I carry it around, it won't get ruined. I would change it 5 days later. I'd be like, oh, that's a better idea, and I would write it down. I was changing my emotional triggers, and I was being inspired to do that, like Thomas Edison with the light bulb and all the other inventions, like the Wright brothers. They didn't have the right emotional trigger, but they kept being inspired to change this, change that. Try tweaking something here, try tweaking something there. They kept being inspired to the next step, to where finally that airplane took off the ground. but they had to work to get to there. And so do you, to where you'll finally take it to where it'll accomplish your goals. The Wright brothers, the answer was always there. The Wright brothers were the ones who were just tenacious enough and tapped into the system that finally showed them how to do it. And then bam, it took off. So feeling is the secret. It sets up the vibration in you. You have the power within you to direct your feelings, but it takes work, and it takes direction, and it takes intensity and consistency. That's the key. James Ray on the movie The Secret, he said, I'd teach this to people, and then they would start doing it, and it was like a seed coming up, and it was just about to break the ground and show, and they quit. They said, this stuff doesn't work. You're hokey. So they gave up too soon. Now, looking at your goal. Sorry about that, guys. I usually unplug my phone. There we go. Okay, so operating from where you are at, your present skills and beliefs. So how am I going to get there? This is what most people do ignorantly, not knowing about the laws. They're going to say, what actions do I need to get into? And they always think physical actions. Look, we're physical beings, or we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. The real side of us, the side of cause, the eternal side of us, is a spiritual being. But now we've been clothed in this physical body with senses and eyes that can see, and ears that can hear, and taste buds that can taste, and senses that we can, nerves that we can feel things. And we think we're our physical body, but the physical body has limitations on it. The spirit doesn't. So we're, as Bob Proctor says, we're spiritual beings. That's where our power is, having a physical experience. So what we need to do is get back to realizing that the real part of us is the spiritual side. But most people don't think about that. So they go out and they get into action without changing the spiritual side, without changing the vibration, without changing the feelings, that creative side of us, the co-creator. So they go out and they get into action. And the untrained mind usually sets up, eventually brings on frustrated feelings, because they get to work and they 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 work, and they don't get the results they want. And they're only going to get as far as where they're at with their vibration. So again, we need new beliefs. So here's how we do that. We can totally, the how is none of your business. When I heard that early on, I thought that was an interesting concept. The how is none of my business. What are you talking about? The how has always been my business. The how has always been everybody's business from generation to generation. How? I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a degree, and then I'm going to get a job, right? How? I'm going to learn how to fix cars, and then I'm going to fix cars. I'm going to show up every morning, and I'm going to clock in, and then I'm going to take my lunch break. What do you mean the how is none of my business? Well, I embraced it, and I could get myself over here immediately in the spiritual world. I could become that goal by thinking from the goal. Think from the goal, not looking at the goal. Take yourself over there on the spiritual side with your imagination. Einstein said imagination is more powerful than knowledge. He says it's unlimited. Who was it that Tesla, he did everything in his imagination, worked out everything in his imagination before he made anything. And when he made it, it always worked. And he did some pretty amazing things. So we can become this over here before we actually get there with our imagination. So we go to imagination workshop. We go to the movies inside our head. People call that daydreaming. Now there is daydreaming, where you could be daydreaming and wanting something and expecting something else. When you're expecting something else, when you're wanting something, you're staying over here. You haven't changed. You have to get over there and actually be that. I am that I am that I am. What is my I am? Am I being over here, or am I being over here? And you can take yourself over here just by changing your thoughts and your feelings, visually, intellectually. And so that's how I've done it. I've set up, I started working out little 3x5 cards and writing out what it would be like to be over there, and just writing the best I could. What was the pros and cons of being over there? And then I focused on the pros. I narrowed it down to what I really wanted in life and how I wanted to impact the world, how I wanted to be a provider, what that meant during the day. And I mean, Become your goal by thinking from your goal. So you got to write it out. You got to write it out and you got to get clear on it. Just like an architect or an engineer gets very clear on the blueprint. Then they hand the blueprint to the laborers, the construction guys, and they follow the blueprint. What you're doing is creating your new blueprint, your new paradigm, and then you're handing it over to the universe, to God's way of doing things, your modus operandi. And you don't know how that's going to work. You don't know how. You have some ideas that you're going to be hooking up with some incredible people that are going to be joining your team, and what the characteristics are and what the work ethics are, and what their personalities are like, and what they're excited about and what they become passionate about. You're aware of those things, but you don't know how they're going to show up and where they're going to show up. But that's like what Susan Sly says. The divine connections start to show up. So I got a graph. I don't know if it's this next slide, but it's going to be coming up, that will show you how that works. The bridge starts to build itself as you get out and get into action in both thinking from your goal and then doing the same things you're doing. But all of a sudden, you'll start meeting up with different people. People will be contacting you. I kid you not. Somebody called me. Somebody called me, and it was a very big deal that they called me. It was on my re-entry, and they called me. That's crazy. From a town that I had never heard of. Well, what happens is this higher power, higher way of making things manifest starts to build out the steps for you, and you step on it. And then as I continue to vibrate over here, the next step shows up, and I step on it. And I have to do my work. When they called me, I didn't just say, okay, let me sign you up and go for it. No, I had to get into action and support them. But they were the right people to support, because they moved me closer and closer to my goal very quickly. You'll find that things happen. The universe likes to work with speed. And when you're ready and you're doing it right, it just moves, 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 moves. And the next step shows up and you step on it. You're not forcing the steps. You're not trying to build across. It's showing up and you're stepping out on it. So work to not have any restraints of thoughts. What I mean by that is when a negative thought comes up, so here you are over here, you're thinking from the goal. You've now become the goal. You've taken ownership of it in the spiritual world, in the world of spirit. And somebody says to you, you can't do this. Are you kidding me? Nobody in your family's ever been successful. And it brings you over here, and you're like, there's a challenge right in that moment. That's where the challenge is. If you start to fight that feeling, it's going to bring you back over here every time. You got to ignore that feeling. It's called the law of non-resistance. You ignore that feeling and you stay over here and keep thinking the thoughts that produce the feelings of being over here. As you're doing that, you're attracting the divine connections. So that's the hardest part. What most people will think is, I need to identify that they just said, okay, I'm going to show them that I'm not worthy of this, and that I can be better. And I know that, you know, we've had challenges in our life, and my family's had challenges, and we've never been able to go on the vacations. Now you're right back over here thinking that you need to restrain that negative thought. You need to let that thought die off. Let it wither up and die. You don't even have the capacity to think anything about it, anything around it, because you're not it anymore. You have to completely abandon it. Let the dead bury the dead. And so you stay over here by thinking the thoughts that you've written down that produce the feelings, the emotional triggers on your 3x5 card, on your vision board. And the longer you can do that, and you can train your mental muscle to stay focused on that thing. It's just a muscle. In the beginning, it's like playing ping pong. But as you commit and recommit, you got to recommit a million times, because you're going to keep having that ping pong ball hit back to you, and it's going to want to make you think your old paradigm. It's going to want to make you think, and there's going to be so many things around you in your physical world that are reminding you of your old paradigm. You have to become delusional, like Will Smith says, and stay over here. And eventually, that ping pong ball never gets hit back. And guess what? You're being recognized for accomplishing this, because it showed up. You're now that thing. You've taken ownership of it mentally, and now you've taken ownership of it physically. You're vibrating at that, and by law, empirically, it's yours. You're that thing. You're that circumstance. You're that situation. You're that lifestyle. You're that leader. You're that game changer in the world. And it has to by law, you guys. It's like the law of gravity. Nobody can tell you no. Nobody can intervene and make it not happen. It's only you. God's already answered all of your prayers in the affirmative. He's just saying, go for it. So master this one law, thinking from your goal and obeying the law of non-resistance. Convey the idea to your mind all day long. And your brain's going to get tired in the beginning, but just keep doing it. And Wallace Wattles, in The Science of Getting Rich, he said, the individual who can sincerely thank God for the things which as yet he owns only in imagination, so doing this, you've taken ownership, and you're thanking God for them, has real faith. He will get rich. He will cause the creation of whatsoever thing he wants. If you can get to where you're here and you have the faith and you say, yes, I've taken ownership. I know it's coming. I know it's coming. There's no doubt. I have zero doubt. I'm not thinking those vibrations of negative thoughts over here anymore. I know it's coming. I know it's coming. I just keep reaffirming those thoughts and those feelings. I know it's coming. It will come by law every time. Nothing can stop it. So the creative energies of the universe, you can fill that in with whatever you're comfortable with. So it's not asking God to get it for us and wanting him to decide if he will give it in his own time. It's taking real mentor ownership that takes understanding and courage, exercising the faith in his power that he'll do it once you've done it. You've got to do your part. It's like the door to heaven. It's being knocked on from the outside, but there's no handle. God can't open it. You have to open it. You have to open, and the door handle is only on the inside. And the inside is your spiritual, mental capacity. You have to take ownership. And then everything else is taken care of for you. So you want to find these emotional driven responses, so you can create these divine connections. Get the 3x5 card out. Decide what your goal is first. Now, my goal was to have freedom in my life. And what I meant by freedom was time freedom and the unlimited, unrestricted free use of things. Because the more I can take ownership and possession of things, it allows me to do more. It allows me to have a greater reach. And so I knew that money was going to be the thing, because our society has been so established that it takes it takes income in order to have things and to do things, and the freedom time-wise to do them. So I found the vehicle. My vehicle is Isagenix. And I found that vehicle which so aligned with my values and my ethics and that the impact that I wanted to make in the world, that it really collided and collaborated with who and what I wanted to be on a large level. I wasn't expecting that. And so then what I did is I said, I'm going to make financial goals. It wasn't my main motivation. The main motivation was the thing that was going to allow me to do. The income was going to allow me to do something much greater. The vision of the impact and how I wanted to make an impact in the world. That's where I wanted to get, but it was going to take financial freedom, the use of things, and my time freedom to do what I want when I wanted for as long as I wanted. So I set financial goals. It's always been financial goals, because that's what allows me to have, do, and be more in this world that we live in. And besides, we're physical beings anyways, and God wants us to have a comfortable life. He wants us to not be lacking anything. There's an abundance of everything. Look at the nature. It's a complete abundance. It never says, okay, I've grown enough. I'm going to, the ivy, you know, it never says, okay, I've grown enough. I've gotten to the top of the wall. No, it grows up and over and down and out. Nature is abundant, and anything that you want, there's an abundance of it. You'll never take more than your share. You can take everything that you wanted, and there's still an unlimited supply left over, an infinite supply, even with you taking as much. And that could be $5 million a year. It could be $5 billion a year, and there'll still be an infinite amount left. So you have to decide, what goals do you want to reach in your step to getting there, and then you create the 3x5 card with emotional triggers around that. What would your life be like? What would you be interacting with people? What would your conversations be on the phone? What would they be recognizing you for at the events? What would people be saying behind your back? And those are positive things, guys, not gossip. So all of these things, the more detailed and the more emotional you can get around that one thing, and you can come up with more emotional triggers, the more tools you get to go out, pull out of your bag when you're having a hard time over here, when something wants to pull you back. Maybe you and your spouse get in an argument, or maybe the associate that you thought was going to do something didn't, and it wants to drag you back over here. You need emotional triggers that are strong enough to get you over here. Okay, so I want you to do that, 3x5 cards, and put pictures. At first I did 3x5 cards and I wrote them out, and then I thought, I really like pictures. I'm a picture guy. So I Googled little things and I made them really small. I Googled, and then I went to images, and then I cut and pasted them on a Word doc, and then I shrunk them down, and I cut them out with scissors, and then I taped them to the back of my cards. So I would read my emotional triggers, and then I'd flip it over and see the pictures that went along with them. Things that really got me emotionally charged up. And so I could get over here. I had the tool to do that. Now it was just, am I going to do it? Am I going to put forth the work to do that? So here's, I want to make this reference to nature and how this acorn knows exactly what it's going to be. And it can't change its mind. There's a vibrational frequency. The oak tree is not in this acorn. The oak tree is in the universe surrounding it. There's no way that oak tree could be in there, but it has every needful thing in here to attract the oak tree to it from the universe around it, because it's set up with a vibration, and like a magnet, it's going to bring it to it when it's set up in the right environment. So this acorn knows from the get-go it's going to be an oak tree. Now, it can't change its mind. It's set. You and I, we can change our minds, and we can negate it, we could self-destruct, you know, we could do all kinds of things. Or we can try and be like nature. My goal is to be like a computer program with my mind and the things that I want. It doesn't fluctuate, it doesn't veer to the left or to the right. It stays focused on exactly what it's going to become, and it vibrates at that level. So when the oak tree is vibrating at this over here, it never takes its eye off the ball. It always knows what it's going to become. And so what happens? Every needful thing is attracted to the acorn, and it becomes a beautiful oak tree every single time. And as it's attracting, every needful thing shows up for the acorn. I asked somebody once, so do you believe God created the earth? And they said yes. And I said, okay, do you think he did it with a shovel? And they got it at that moment. As spiritual beings, we are so powerful in a humble way. You cannot think it's about you. You're always dependent on the powers that be. You are always servant to them. So there's a humility that comes with this power. The moment your pride gets in the way is the moment you're starting the beginning of your fall. You have to recognize it's not about you and how great you are, how great you're going to be. It's about you submitting yourself and being humble and finding that thing in life that you were meant to accomplish. That way that you're going to go out and be a servant leader and make a difference in the world. And when you find that, you then become it. You become that. You get yourself over there on the other side of the ledge. There's no bridge. You don't know the how, but you just took yourself over there in the realm where it really matters, where cause takes place. Everything else in the physical world is an effect of vibration. And people are trying to change the effects. They're trying to manipulate the effects. And it becomes very frustrating. Now, people could fall into vibrating over here ignorantly, and they have great success. And guess what happens? They didn't know how they did it. They get discouraged about something like the news telling them that the economy is going down. All of a sudden, what do? They change the regular thought habits that they had, and they lose their business. You guys, my business flourished right through the economy. Why? Because I didn't let the news and the forecast of the economy, I didn't let it in. Why would I do that? That's just their opinion. So I've guarded my focus with my life. I guarded my frequency with my life, and I still do it. And I have a new goal. I have a new goal that I'm working on getting over here. And it's just the same process. The comforting thing for me, and the thing that makes it easier, is I know the process. I'm not questioning it, and I know what it takes to do it. So it's endless opportunities. So trust in the law. Know that it is your friend and it's there to serve you, but you've got to do your part. And when you start reading the scriptures, or if you've been reading the scriptures, these things are going to pop out all over the place. They do. Almost every time I read it, I could see where God has already blessed my life, and He was trying to teach me that. So I think what I would do is, if we were in a big group and we were, you know, at an event, I'd have people get into like groups of probably 5, and they would have come up with their goal, that thing, that one thing that they want to accomplish. What's their big goal that's over here on the other side of the ravine? And then I would have them write out trigger points, emotional triggers. And then I would have people, and you'd want to do that as though you're living from it. You're taking ownership. Some people have a very difficult time. They can't. I've done this before. I did this before, and some people couldn't even write it down on the paper. As I've worked with individuals, they weren't even able to write it down on the paper on their own in their home. They didn't feel worthy. They didn't feel good enough. They didn't feel like that they were deserving of it. So in groups of 5, you start getting people to work together, and they start to share their ideas and their concepts, and they help each other work on it. And then I'd have them practice with each other going into their imagination workshop. How are they talking to themselves? How are they thinking from the goal? Music works great with this as well. Your music puts you in a good vibe. You get the right song, and it could be different at different times, whatever your biological rhythms are in. You know, some days you're really up, and some days you're kind of like subdued. Whatever music, you could be having that going on while you're reading it. And it's always got to be some kind of music that reconfirms what your goal is, as though you already have it. It just drives the message home. Oh, music can just amplify it. It's like you just got hooked up to the equalizer. So anyways, I'd have them get together in groups and do that and hammer out, so that when they went home, they would know exactly how they're going to do this. And I would say, yeah, find a quiet time. I spend time in my office every morning. A lot of times I like to wake up earlier before everybody else gets up, so there's not clanging and feet walking around and doors shutting and dishes banging. I'll do that, and for a minimum of 10 minutes, I'm going to do it intensely. And then here's the secret. I try to find the times during the day when I'm not running it through my mind. When I let my mind slip into subconscious and I'm not really thinking, I try to find the times when I'm not running it through my mind, and I'll get it right back on course. And that was the thing that fatigued me. My mind wasn't used to me using those muscles. By the end of the day, I was wore out, but then I woke up and I did it again. So I do it all day long, guys. And I'm in the habit of doing that now, but what now I try to do is find out when I'm not doing as intensely as I know I could be, or pushing myself a little bit harder. You know, just like an athlete's going to push themselves a little harder, push themselves a little harder. I'm going to push myself harder mentally to feel it, to come up with a new trigger or amplify that trigger. How can I do that? And guys, miracles happen. Miracles happen every day. And I have people, you know, that have been listening to the podcast from all over the world, and the miracles that are happening in their lives. You do it just I mean, maybe you're not going to be as good at it, or you're not going to spend as much time doing it as I'm doing it. You're still going to see changes. You change your course 1 degree, you take that out 6 months, and there's a lot of things that have changed. Like an airplane going to one destination, if they're off 1 degree and they're flying across the country, they'll completely miss the state. So it's just a process. It's here a little, there a little, getting better, growing from grace to grace until you perfect it. And then you're going to perfect something else after that. It's a process, and it's a lifelong process, and it'll even extend beyond this life. I'm so excited for you guys. This world is becoming nothing but this great ball of light because of the way we can communicate with each other, the way we can support each other, the way we can mentor and cheer each other on, and the way we can teach and learn from each other. You guys, there are great things coming, and I felt this at a young age, that I was going to be a part of something great, something so great that I couldn't even imagine it. This is it. This is part of it. And it's going to take us into this place where people are living the law. And when we're living the law, we reap the benefits and the blessings from living those laws. So just be a part of it, accept it and embrace it, and be committed. So with that, I don't think, oh, that's, I I like this. I was thinking about, works and faith. Faith without works is dead. We all know that. And works without faith is dead. The works without faith is when you're making the phone calls and you're doing the meetings and you're calling people and you're following up, but your business isn't moving forward because your faith isn't there. Your faith isn't over here. You're wanting something, but you're expecting something else. When you have the faith while you get into work, miracles happen. When your faith matches your work, you got to have them both. They're both essential. So with your mental faculties, guys, you get to take it whatever direction you want. You get to use these mental faculties. So I just hope and pray that this was worth it for you guys to be on, that you learned something. I highly recommend listening to the Mechanic to Millionaire podcast. I'll direct you to some of the mentors like Raymond Hollywell, Wallace Wattles, and some other things that you can tap into, Bob Proctor, and what to read. Thomas Troward. That Judge Troward is all about vibrations. That guy's taken me to a whole new level on understanding vibrations. So with that, you guys, I'm going to go through and read some of these questions and see if I can answer any of them. So this is a common feeling right here. I can feel guilty for wanting something that someone else doesn't have. Here's how you need to change that. So you need to write this down because I'm speaking to you. When you have that thing, you're going to inspire other people to have it who want it just as badly as you do. So I say live your life that you inspire people to accomplish things that they otherwise wouldn't have had the faith to do. Me and my wife are inspiring people to do things that they otherwise wouldn't have had the faith to do had we not done it first. Switch that around, and oh my gosh, there's just that's just shift right there. That could be an aha moment for you that immediately lets you leave that guilty feeling behind forever. And then obey the law of non-resistance, LNR, the law of non-resistance. Don't think about that thought again. When it comes up, replace it with what I just told you every time, and then build upon that, build upon it. The law of non-resistance, if everybody did that, I didn't go into it too much on this presentation, I meant to. The law of non-resistance is like water going down a hill. When that negative thought comes up, it's like a rock that gets in the pathway of a stream, a little trickle of water going down a hillside. It doesn't look at the rock. It doesn't try to figure out and stop and figure out how to get over it. It goes right around it. Acts like it wasn't even there. And it gets to its destination every time. The law of non-resistance is the same thing. Don't resist that thought of feeling guilty. Don't ever think it again. But you got to replace it with an emotional trigger. That is just the opposite of that. So everybody's deserving. Are you kidding me? But I understand that. I know that that's a big problem. Some people can't even write it down. That's why we need to be in groups of 5. And so as you start to go for it and you're being criticized by those who don't have it, telling you you'll eventually inspire them, or they won't hang around you anymore, and that's okay. Well, depending who it is, hopefully it's not your spouse. So you got to be like Marianne Williamson says, don't not go after your greatness that you might make others feel insecure around you. That's a famous quote. Nelson Mandela quoted Marianne Williamson. Don't not let your light shine and become all that you can be because you think others might feel inferior around you. That's an excuse. Should I start small and work on the feeling like I deserve it, and then it's okay for me to have things? You can do it any way you want. It's up to you. The law doesn't care, and I don't care. You're the one that's got to care, and you got to go about it the way you want to. You don't need permission. The only permission you need is from yourself. So, and I'm not saying this, I know I get intense and it's like a coach. I had football coaches who really got on me, and I loved those coaches. So I'm sorry if it's coming across that way and you're not that type of personality. But you're the only one. Permission to succeed comes from yourself. Do it any way you want. And go for it in any way that you feel comfortable. But push yourself. Get out of your comfort zone. All right. Let's see. Give a few examples of your trigger response on cycle increase. Okay, so if so when I got started in the business, I wanted to hit a 3-star. That's 6-figure income. Wow, I never made a six-figure income, not even with 3 jobs. So six-figure income, 3 star, that'd be 40 cycles for those of you that are in the same business. What would I think about? Well, I'd write it out. I would write my graph out, and I would know how much volume I would need to have. And I copied and pasted the graph from my back office, and I wrote in how many cycles that would be in the cycle column. And I wrote the amount of volume that would be needed on both sides. And I had 40 in there. And then I was just like, yes, I made it. 40 cycles is so awesome. Our lives are changed as a family. We're driving the cars that are more dependable, and we're in a home where we all fit, you know, we all have our own room, and I'm making a difference in people's lives, and I have people in my organization that are doing this, this, and this. They're having their own meetings. I'm not the only one doing meetings anymore. It's so awesome that I have people that see the same vision that I see. And you feel that. Put some music behind that, and you got the feeling. You got to use your imagination. It's endless. Remember, Walter Cronkite couldn't see what Walt Disney saw. Took him out to the field. Walter's imagination needed some development. He needed some mental imagination muscle. He didn't have it. And he said, Walt, I'm sorry, I don't see it. All I see is a dirt field. And he said for every step he took back to his car was worth $1 million to him. So you really got, and you can hold up people in the company that are doing what it is you want to do. Start thinking about some of the things and the things that you think that they're experiencing and the things that you know they're experiencing. Now just replace that and put it into your life and take ownership of those experiences. They're going to the nice hotels. They don't have to worry about how much the hotel cost, where the event is. You know, when you fill up your car with gas, you don't have to worry about the price of gas. You put the best gas there is, and you don't even look at the price, and that's what your car wants anyways, because you're driving a nicer car and you're feeling what it's like to be in that car. So use your imagination. There's endless amount of things that you can come up with as your emotional triggers. And if you have to borrow somebody's that's already in the company or somebody who's successful, do that. If one of my goals is Crystal Executive, can you suggest triggers? So I think that hit the same thing. I can't be sure I'm on the right track. When you feel like you are an executive, then you know you hit the right triggers. So if you're, here's what I know. As I'm doing my 3x5 cards, I'm ready with a pencil. I'm never doing my 3x5 cards without a pencil by me because I know there's going to be an idea that comes up. And I'm listening. I'm tuning out everything, and I'm becoming that thing, and I'm listening. And an inspirational idea will come up to write down on that 3x5 card. That's like the Wright brothers who finally figured out how to get the plane off the ground. They listened, and they made the adjustment. Your adjustment's going to be on your 3x5 card and on your vision board. You're going to see a picture of something, and you're going to be like, oh, I need that picture on my vision board. Make sure you put it on there. Don't ignore it. Now, the universe will never stop giving you the inspiration on the next idea. It's a matter of whether you follow through with it or not. And a lot of your inspiration is going to come on how you change and refine your 3x5 card. Okay, that's so important. My 3x5 cards get changed all the time. How do I know my goal or dream? You're the only one that's going to know what's important. Nobody else can tell you what's important to you, what's passionate to you, and what you're going to pursue in your life, and what you feel is worthy of your time. You got to come up with that, and then maybe an abstract idea at first, but then as you refine it, it will become more and more concrete, and you'll know exactly what to do to manifest it in physical reality. Why do I feel like I need to find new friends? Get rid of the toxic relationships. I'm telling you, they could be people that are in your business already. They could be people you're hanging around. When you start working on your mental faculties and your vibration, it will happen automatically. It's like oil and water. The more you maintain that level of vibration on a new paradigm, that's a whole new group of friends. And it happens automatically. It's not like you're better than them. It's just like oil and water, though. We've heard it, birds of a feather flock together. So as you maintain, don't let them pull you down like crabs in a bucket. If there's one crab in a bucket, it'll always escape. But if you put more than one crab, the crabs in the bucket, when one's about to get out, the ones in the bucket will pull that one back down. And no crabs ever escape. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to know what you're going to do. Try to bring them along with you, but just keep working on yourself, and it will naturally occur if you do it with the intensity. Okay, let's see here. What's my emotional trigger when others say that you can't or shouldn't do this? I already have my emotional triggers figured out on a 3x5 card so that when they do say that, it's like water on a duck's back. I will be congenial with people, but sometimes I interrupt the conversation or I just walk away if it's a group of people. I won't be involved with any negative conversations. I do take care of challenges and address them, but as soon as I address them, I don't ponder on them. I'm right back to the other side of the cliff. We're all going to experience challenges. Nothing's going to be perfect in a rose garden 24/7, 7 days a week, month after month, year after year. That's impossible. But it's how you respond to the challenges. And I already know my routine. It's getting over to the other side of the cliff. I like that visual of the cliff because you know when you're on that other side of the cliff if you keep checking in. Keep evaluating where you're at during the day. When you're in a conversation with somebody, be thinking in your head consciously, what side of the cliff am I on right now? What side of the cliff am I on? How can I address this? And then how can I move on and get back to that side of the cliff? I'm constantly doing that. Would you be able to elaborate more on using the law of non-resistance when you are dealing with close family members who are in a very negative place? Don't bring up conversations about this stuff. If they're not into it, they're not going to be your accountability partner and they're not going to grow along with you, you got to keep it to yourself. You'll create more negativity and a division between you. You're going to want to share it. You're going to want to share it with everything that you are. Fight it and keep it within yourself and be the example. And you'll do fine. You'll do fine. Just don't try and push it on people. It creates a bigger divide. How often throughout the day and for how long should you focus? Try to find the times when you're not. When you're interrupted with something at work, go ahead and take care of that thing at work. But most people work enough that they could be thinking in their mind while they're doing something at work and still get the job done just right. And always work hard, always be an honest employee, work harder than you ever have, and outgrow that position. But I always try to find the times when I'm not thinking about it. I try to do it consistently. They say on The Secret that would like drive you mad, but to be quite frank, you need to do it as often and get to where it's happening all the time. And then eventually it goes into autopilot like that. In my back office where it shows the cycles, so your left team, your right team, and the cycles. So I changed that. I printed it out. I used some kind of thing like Photoshop and wrote in 40 where I was only at like 3 or 4 cycles. I wrote in 40. And then I just make believe that that was where I was at when I looked in my back office. You guys are awesome. I love this. How many 3x5 cards do you have at any one given time? Um, I used to have like I'd put a little hole punch and then put them on a little 3 ring. I mean, one of those little ring binders that you can put keys on and stuff. I'd put it on that, and then I'd just flip through them. And I used to have a lot of them because there was a lot of negativity and a lot of things that I needed to change just to get to my one goal. And so I came up with the solutions of what I'm going to think about for all of the negative things that I was thinking, not even realizing that I was thinking them that way and that they were affecting me. So I had quite a few in the beginning, and I just flip through them. I'd read them and flip through them, and every time I could pull them out, I would flip through them and read them. And then I would I narrowed that down. Now I have one, and then I have my vision board, and it has a lot of writing on it on my 8.5 by 11 card. As many as it takes, but keep your goal on one thing. Yeah, what's worthy of your time? What do you feel is worthy of your time? That I like to do the things that please God. So if I'm doing something that's helping and serving other people, I know I'm doing what it is that's important to me and worthy of my time. I have a learning disability. How can I tell myself I'm smarter? By not saying that you have a learning disability. That's you're breaking the law of non-resistance. Um, Deepak Chopra would even say that you could physically change your physical being physiologically um, through proper thinking. So get rid of that. No longer take that label, whether it's clinically shown or not, and don't say it anymore. Use the law of non-resistance and replace that with I am great, I am smart, I am intelligent, I am accomplishing all of the things that I want to accomplish, those types of things. Yeah, I think this webinar will be available as long as it's recorded right and it's uploadable. I don't know how long we've been on. Okay, we're getting close to the ends of the questions here. No, I don't suggest only one trigger. I suggest as many triggers as you need to constantly stay on it and not be bored or lose that feeling. If you say the same thing over and over that did give you a trigger and an emotional response, you may lose that. It may fade out on you. You got to constantly be changing it, adding them, making it better, make it fresh, but make it always better. And those will come to you. You'll get them suggested to your mind. Is a note page on my iPhone a good substitute for the 3x5 cards? Absolutely. I mean, you could have it pop up. You can, I use my iPhone. I have my vision board on my iPhone. I have my family. I have an affirmation for my family, and it pops up every day. It's a reoccurring message. Vision boards, again, emotional triggers. How can you make a great vision board? Evolve it, tape things on there. Don't make your one vision board spend 3 days on it or 3 weeks and then say that's it. Evolve it like you do your 3x5 cards and use pictures and words. I don't know where. I guess we'll probably post it on YouTube. We'll get the message out the same way. Again, I'll post it on Facebook and it'll just filter out. What happens when you have many goals that seem very far away? They can't seem far away. Then you're not doing it correctly. So what happens when you have many goals that seem far away? And I would work on one goal at a time. I used to say maybe 3 or 4. Guys, right now it's extreme OCD. Extreme OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. You're going to be extremely focused on one thing. And then when you reach that and it becomes habitual, you'll know what you want to do next. And other things in your life will improve even though you're not directly thinking about them because you're developing the characteristics and the skills. You'll start responding to everything correctly because you're working on that one thing. Yeah, a trigger would be like an affirmation, something that just gets you emotionally enthusiastic and excited. So when you read it, it gets you fired up and puts you in that feeling, changes your vibration. You guys, I mean, there's a lot of things that can change a vibration. If you're in the middle of doing something and you're intensely thinking about it, like on an airplane, you ever hear a baby cry on an airplane? You can feel what happens to people's vibrations around you, right? And maybe even your own vibration. That's a trigger. That baby crying is an emotional trigger. You want a trigger like that in a positive way. In a positive way, you want an emotional trigger, something that kicks it off. And so what you're really doing is getting that hypothalamus to create the aminopeptide and goes into your blood, docks into your cells and starts vibrating at that level and then sends it out. And that is omnipresent. It doesn't travel. Your thoughts don't travel. They're omnipresent. They're everywhere present at the same time, kind of like your email. Very, very powerful. Okay, you guys, thanks so much for being on, and I appreciate all the nice comments from everybody. And I'll talk to Austin about getting this up on YouTube and see what we can do. Oh gosh, yes, Gretchen. Oh man, I so believe it. That's network marketing is a part of where we're going in this world. It gives people freedom, it gives them empowerment, and it's the right company, right? Being with the right vehicle, one that truly wants to serve the associates and has the products that work and are transforming lives. I absolutely believe networking is that part of this transformation. It doesn't hold people down. It lets them blossom. It lets them do things like we're doing tonight, and it promotes it. It's part of the built-in mechanism of it. And this company is incredible that we're with, right? And so it all trickles down. You've all been attracted to it. This is huge. We're pioneering something. Okay, you guys, you're so welcome. We'll see you next time. Bye bye, everybody.